Hi, Devin.
All right. So to start today's Paticca, I will share the note that I created for the YMBA syllabus. Okay. So Paticca, there is a short verse, and then there is the 12-step process. In order to explain the 12-step process, right, which is the most common explanation for Paticca, I want to start by explaining the 5 aggregates. Okay, this is a 9-page document. At the end of this session, I will post this in our teacher staff WhatsApp group. So the 5 aggregates or the Panchaskanda, right? We know what this is, but for completeness sake, I will go through this as well. So we are talking about Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, right? And so if you think about how, see, for now for us, this is presented as a syllabus, whereas for the Samma Sambuddha, this was something he had to discover on his own. So how this is explained, linking back to the Buddha, is when he saw the four foresights or the Satara Paranimiti, there was a confusion and a turmoil in his mind as to why is this happening? What is going on here? What is causing all of this? Why can't we be young and healthy forever? How come this change is taking place? And where did this start and how will this end? Those were the questions he had. And that is one of the main reasons why he left the lay life, to find answers, because just seeing that reality was very unsettling to him. So when he started looking into and looking for the answers, this is one place where he started realizing, because it is often explained that if you want to understand the universe, you first understand yourself, how your body and mind is made, and that will give you a lot of insights into how the universe is working. So we get an indication that if we understand this, then we will understand that, right? So if you focus on the 5 aggregates, what is this all about? So what we mention as Rupa, the body and the 4 elements, the solidity, the cohesion. The solidity part is the earth part, right? Patavi. And then there is the water or the cohesion. So if you think of how solid converts into water, the water has this whole ability to keep things together, right? And then there is the heat. Any living being needs that heat part. So Patavi, Akho is water, I think, no? And Tejo is heat, Patavi, Akho, Tejo, and Vayu is wind, right? And then the whole motion part. If you think of it from atoms point of view, solid means the atoms are very tightly packed. The water is where it is much more loose, and the air is when it is like really scattered. And the heat element comes from a lot of activity, I believe, right? So anyway, this whole Rupa part. Now, I have come across 2 explanations on this. One is this whole Rupa being this body thing. The other is that this whole Panchaskanda is a mental process. And there are So there are the the six sense doors in the body: the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body sense door, and of course the mind. Right. Now the interesting thing is the one interesting thing about that is that they're all on the body. So when it comes to the five main sense doors, we do understand that the eye, the nose, the tongue, the ear, and the skin, or rather what we call the body, being part of a body, we understand. So the mind, now where is the mind? Right. So here again, there are, this is where I think Hamdro can actually give an input. I have heard that the mind, that the Buddha had said that the mind is in the chest area. And I always thought that because the brain is in the head, that is the mind in the brain. Maybe Hamdro can give us a point of view on that. Where is the mind located in the body?
I think they have some, how to say, some different explanation.
Okay.
But in Theravada tradition, I mean, it's mostly explained in the commentary books. You know that Attakatha. They say that mind actually it used chitta, not the mano.
Right.
That word chitta. That chitta is that between the blood in the heart, inside the heart, there
Right.
is a blood. So
Right.
always chitta is in there.
Right.
That's what the commentary. So who
Nice.
compose those commentaries explain.
Right. Right. That's very interesting. So anyway, what it
And actually it's a chitta rupa, chittaja rupa.
I see.
Not the chitta, but chittaja rupa.
The
But
sense
in the
door.
Abhidhamma, they have particular term,
Right.
chittaja rupa. So that chittaja rupa start from that blood from the heart, inside the
Fantastic.
heart.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew, for that explanation. That's a very clear explanation. Thank you. So, so it goes to show that the sense doors, the six sense doors. Now, this is interesting because the Buddha identifies six sense doors, but if you look at the Western way of looking at things, they don't necessarily see the mind as a sense door. They more see it as a complex processing thing. So here, so there are six sense doors and they are in the body. So the Rupa connect comes from there. And then the sense inputs. So the visual Rupa comes from the eye, right? The auditory Rupa comes from the ear. The nose has its own sense notes, perfumic notes, and so on. The tongue will have the taste, and the skin will have the touch sensations, right? And of course, the mind sense door will have the various thoughts. Now, here also it's interesting to think that where does the mind sense door get the information from? Because the way this whole five aggregates is explained is all the inputs come from outside, right? All the inputs come from outside. Now, for the first five sense doors, it's very easy to understand. But for the mind, for a long time, I thought that I am generating these thoughts inside my mind is generating these thoughts. And that is why we then feel that this is my thought, right? Because of this belief that my mind is generating these thoughts. But after I heard this concept, it actually became much clearer because there are many times that sometimes a thought comes to my mind and I'm like, where is this thought even coming from? Number one, it's not relevant to the current context. Number two, some of these thoughts are really absurd. And number three, some of these thoughts are very destructive in nature. right? So, and I'm pretty sure you all have gone through this. And then in instances like that, you are like, am I really generating these thoughts? So why would I do that, right? Another place where I find this this 5 aggregates very useful is when I'm trying to self-discipline myself. So let's say I'm trying to I have realized that I am too greedy and I am liking sweets, and I'm now trying to control myself. So I make a determination that I'm not going to have any sweets today because I have had far too many the last few days. Right? It's an example. But then throughout the day, a lot of thoughts comes. Maybe I should eat something, look for a cookie or a biscuit, or thoughts of shall I order something? Shall I go and buy something sweet? And that also has got me thinking, why is there such a conflict? I have determined to do something, but where are these thoughts coming from? These are not useful thoughts. So the mind as a sense door makes a lot of sense in that context. And the fact that these are external and not internal. And how does that part get explained? So where is the mind as a sense door getting this inspiration from? It is from the past, my own past, right? And usually what gets repeated is the near events, right? So if you watched a movie in the morning, during the day, you will remember things from that. Or if you were listening to some of your favorite songs, for a couple of hours, that will play again. So the nearness of whatever happened. And then, of course, sometimes very long ago things, there's very strange ways of how the mind connects things and it'll remind. And sometimes you really don't know why you even remember these things, right? And there's one place where the Buddha says that this whole process is like a tangled ball of string, right? Other than for being aware of what input has come to you right now, if you try to understand what triggered this, it's probably going to be very futile or not a useful exercise because it's such a complicated ball of string, right? So anyway, that's about Rupa. So, and let me illustrate this with an example, and that's the example I have here down in this note. So imagine you are standing at the bus halt, right? And while waiting for a bus, you notice somebody coming at a distance. Now, initially, it's not clear, but as the person is coming close, you recognize the person. Okay. So from a 5 aggregates point of view, what is happening? So now in order for you to see, there are 3 things that has to be fulfilled. One is you need to have a healthy functioning eye. Secondly, there has to be a visual object for you to look at. And thirdly, there has to be your mind's attention, right? Here, I often make the example, many a times you would have experienced this yourself where somebody will come and tap on you and say, how come you just passed by me, you didn't even notice me, and then you're like, oh my god, I mean, I didn't see you, sorry, right? And sometimes you're looking for something and you just can't find it, but it was actually right there, right under your nose. Yeah. So what it means is just because you have a healthy eye and just because there's some visual object, it doesn't necessarily mean you can see. In order for you to see, your mind's attention has to go there as well. So when all 3 are together, when all 3 come together, there is what we call passa or sparsha, right? And that is when you actually see. So that is the whole rupa part. So now a visual rupa has formed. Then the moment there is a passa or a sparsha, there is a sensation. So sensation is feelings, right? Now, initially, the sensation is neutral. Then comes your perception. The perception is based on your memories, right? From the time we were born up to now, we make judgments, personal judgments, that this is good and this is bad. This is right and this is wrong. This is something that I like and this is something I don't like. Right? So all of those things are in our, let's say it's our brain like a supercomputer, right? Now, once the so if I just explain the process, you the visual object and the eye sense door are connected with the mind's attention, and the image that got created gets transmitted to your brain, right? Through your brain, and your eye is connected through the what now is called optical nerve, right? So through the optical nerve. So when this data is sent to the brain is then going to process it. It's like a supercomputer, right? So the perception, the way you can think of the perception is think of a filing cabinet, and there are many files in it. So in order to process what you saw, so the brain will pull out a file, and that file will have something called, now in this case, you are seeing a person walking, right? You recognize the person. Oh, this is, let's say, Nimali, right? Oh, that's Nimali. So the brain takes the file of Nimali, and on the top of the file, what is there? On the top of the file, there are the things that is the key things about Nimali. Do you like her or do you not like her, right? Is she a good person or a bad person? Yeah. And these are your own personal judgments. And the moment you recognize Nimali, the Vedana, the sensation changes. Up to now, it was a neutral sensation. The moment you recognize the person, the Vedana changes depending on your judgment of that person. So imagine Nimali is your best friend, right? You will be delighted. You'll be just delighted. Your entire body gets flows. Pleasant sensations flow through your body, right? So the Buddha described this as Sukha Vedana, Dukkha Vedana, and Adukkama Sukha Vedana, right? So Sukha Vedana is pleasant sensations, Dukkha Vedana is unpleasant sensations, and Adukkama Sukha is neutral sensations, right? So in the case of Nimali, assuming that Nimali is my best friend, I'm like, oh wow, so a lot of pleasant sensations flood your body, right? And then you come to the reaction. The reaction is what we call sankhara, or the mental formations. Now remember, this is where the whole karmic things start generating, right? Your reaction. So if you're in a bus hold and you see somebody coming and that person turns out to be your best friend, what kind of reaction would you be? You'll be like, hey, hi. No, you'll wave, you'll smile, you'll probably walk out to meet the person, and you'll be like so delighted. You'll probably grab the person's hand and start talking, and that is the whole reaction part of it. And of course, you need the vijnana, or the consciousness. This entire process happens because of you being conscious of it. Yeah. So that is the panchaskandha. Now this becomes pancha upadana skandha. Then that's another interesting part of it now. The Panchaskandha is about what is happening here and now, right? Now imagine a bus comes and Nimali is like, hey, that's my bus. I'll catch up with you, or I'll give you a call, and Nimali gets on the bus and goes. And you are still waiting for your bus. Now Nimali is not in your sight. She's not in your line of sight. She's left. But you continue to think about Nimali. What a nice person she is. Actually, I should meet up with her. I should message her saying, shall we meet for coffee next week? Or, now without the sense information, or rather the sense door information is now not there anymore. But you are still continuing to think about that person, right? So this is where it becomes a upadana, or rather you are now holding on to it in a very tight way, right? Now imagine it was not Nimali, but let's say it was Amali, for example, right? And let's assume that you really don't like Amali. So when your eye, the visual door, sees the visual object and mind's attention comes there, what arises is what we call cognition. And recognition comes from the sanya, right? So initially it is cognition. So when it is initial cognition, the sensation is neutral. Then your perception or the recognition, and that's a different file now, Amali. Now in Amali's file, what is there on the top? Oh, I really dislike her. This is a bad cookie, right? she's such a toxic person. She did this and she did that, and she told this and she told that, and so all the things about why Amal is such a bad person. And then negative sensations, dukkha sensations, right? Dukkha vedana. Earlier it was sukha vedana. So negative, unpleasant sensations go across your body. And what do you think your reaction would be, your sankhara? The mental reaction would be to, if there are a couple of people in the bus halt already, you might try to actually hide behind them, sort of. Or if you had an umbrella, you might actually cover your face, right? Because you do not want to meet this person, right? And let's say a bus came and stopped, and this Amali just didn't even see you because of obviously you are covering yourself with your umbrella. And Amali just got in the bus and went, and then you'll be like, thank God, I really didn't want to meet that woman, right? And then you'll be thinking of something really nasty she said or did. And we all have experiences, right? Sometimes for hours or days, even you can keep thinking about these things. So that is when it's a upadana skandha. So that is the 5 aggregates, all right? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vinyana. So this is how it works. Now, how does this relate to, I will go straight to the 12-step process, right? So that, yeah, there we go. The 12-factor formula of dependent origination. So a couple of things about this. One is, even though it is listed in 12 steps, this is actually a circle, right? And in a circle, as you know, there is no start or end, right? So even though when we are listing something, we have to start from somewhere and we have to end somewhere, it doesn't necessarily mean that avijja, pachya, sankhara is the start of it, right? The circle can be broken at any point. And it's just a matter of listing it. So this is how the Buddha went on to explain cause and effect, right? So he said, avijja, pachya, sankhara. Avijja is whole ignorance. Through ignorance is conditioned karma formations. Now it is interesting to note, now I just gave an example of Nimali and Amali, right? And what is the whole ignorance around that 2 events or 2 episodes that happened in my life? Yeah. And how is this ignorance causing karma formations? So there are many things now here. One is when the eye sees a visual object and the mind's attention connects it, there's a rupa, right? A visual rupa that got formed. Now that formation, it's automatic, and your consciousness, through the consciousness, you know that there's a visual object, right? Then the neutral vedana arises. And then comes the perception, sanya, where that whole interpretation, the personal interpretation takes place. The biased interpretation takes place. Now, the whole avijja starts with this whole perception part of it, right? One is to have this point of view that I can decide what is right and what is wrong and what is good and what is bad in the world. Now, if you notice, we all have a point of view about everything, right? And what I think is good, you might think is bad, right? What I think is right, you might think it's wrong. And even among Dharma school staff like us, we have these differences of opinion, right? About many things. It just goes to show how points of views are such a thing in the world. Now, the avijja comes from number one, us believing that I am a being that is a permanent sort of a being, not a being that is changing every moment, but there's a more permanent state to me as a being. And there is a person called me, myself, I, that is existing, and therefore these points of views are mine and they're very important, right? So that is the major reason why there's avijja. And then there are the sub-reasons as well, and that is our sense doors are limited in what it can process. So, for example, even though my eye sees Nimali as a full person, we know that it's a limitation of our eye, because actually Nimali is not a whole person, right? We know from our O-level science, Nimali is a bundle of atoms. But when I look at Nimali, do I see a bundle of atoms? No. Why? Why I don't see that is because my eye cannot see small particles. Those particles are too small to be seen. And secondly, those particles are changing at a very rapid speed. Neither my eye nor my brain can process that speed. So therefore, it looks like Nimali is a constant being, right? A person that is existing. So here, there are some good examples to really understand this. If you think about in a procession, right, what we call Perahera, you find the talented artists who are twirling what do you call Giniwalalu, right? Giniwalalu Karakawanai. So what they do is they take a stick and they tie clothes or whatever to the two ends, and they light it up, and then there are two balls of fire, right, on a long stick. And now a skilled, talented person can turn that stick in a very fast and skilled way, where it looks like it's a ring of fire, right? But actually, is it a ring of fire? No, it is actually a stick, a long stick with two balls of fire. Now, two balls of fire, when it is being turned fast, and faster, it appears as a ring of fire. How is that possible? It's possible because of the limitation of your own eye, right? Because your eye can capture visuals only up to a certain speed. Beyond that speed, it appears as a ring because it cannot separate out that it's just two balls, two small balls going at a very fast speed. So it's the same idea that you can think about Nimali. Nimali is a bundle of atoms, even smaller particles than that. And when the Buddha was doing his Vidarshana meditation, what he saw was that we are made of very, very small particles, right? Too small to be seen by the eye. And these particles come into being and change and pass away at a very fast speed, right? Too fast to get processed even by your brain. So as a result, we see it as a whole person, but actually it's a flux. It's a flux of tiny particles changing at a very rapid speed. Yeah. So then the very first visual, the rupa or the visual rupa that you see, that itself is not true, right? But because of avijja, we believe that what we see is the truth and the only truth in the world, right? And this is why the Buddha, when he was explaining about the reality and the truth of the world, he said, there is a conventional world and then there's reality. So in this conventional world, what you see, you believe to be true. But in the reality, there is no Nimali, because number one is, what can you point to and say that this is Nimali? Which little particle are you going to show? Because Nimali is a bundle of particles. And even if you try to show one particle, those particles are changing at a very rapid speed. You will not be able to pinpoint a particle. Before you can pinpoint a particle, that particle has changed and some other particle is in its place. So you actually, there's nothing to show saying this is Nimali. Okay? So that whole avijja thing comes from there is no you to start with, and there is no Nimali to start with, right? What your eye is showing you is not real. Yeah. And then it goes on and it goes on to show that because my sense doors sort of show me that I am here, my sense doors show me that Nimali is here, we have constructed an entire world in a conventional way. That world exists, and in that we have names and we have an existence. But in reality, I don't exist. Nimali doesn't exist. there's nothing I can show as I, because if there's something that I can show as I should be able to control it. I should be able to do whatever I please with it. Right? It certainly cannot be going through an aging process and suddenly drop dead if there's any I in it. Yeah. So avijja paccaya sankhara, that is where it is coming from. Now, the reaction part of it. The reaction is because of my predetermination that I like Nimali, I go and talk to Nimali. Because of my predetermination that I don't like Kamali, I have very unpleasant thoughts and feelings about her, and I don't. So both of these are karmic. Both these things generate karma, right? So sankhara is the karma. Now, what would an enlightened being do? The enlightened being also will see Nimali, right? Just imagine I'm enlightened. What will be different? So I see Nimali and see Amali. Number one is there'll be so much of metta in me that I will feel the same loving kindness, compassion to both Nimali and Amali, irrespective of how they treated me, right? So universal loving kindness. Secondly, when I see Nimali or Amali, I know that these are what you call impermanent beings, right? Come together for temporarily because the conditions were such. And when the conditions don't exist anymore, they'll cease to exist, right? So the whole anitya, the impermanence, and if something is changing so fast, how can there be any happiness or joy in it? The whole suffering part of it and the whole non-self part of it is so apparent that there's really nothing to get excited about, right? When there's nothing to get excited about, you don't get excited. And so there's no reaction, therefore. There's no reaction. So it is the lack of identification that this is me, myself, I, and these are things I like, and these are things I don't like. And it's also about being able to, so our Hamdaro last week explained this really nicely to me. Hamdaro said that we construct this world. Rather, if we, at the point where this sense information is coming in, if we can see it as those individual inputs. Because if you take the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind, and if you take it together, then that world gets constructed. But if you take it separately, like Duttu de Duttu Apavanai, right? What I see is just light. And because if you really look at what do you see? When we say that I saw Nimali, what did you see? What came into your eye, what entered your eye was light, right? It had color. Again, we think there's only 7 colors in the world, right? The rainbow colors. Maybe there's more, maybe there's less, we don't know. So it's all depending on our limited experience that we are defining the whole world. And this is more apparent when you know that for humans, for example, we hear between 20,000 to 20 to 20,000 hertz, right? But we know like a dog can hear beyond that frame. So we have evidence that there is a bigger range of hearing, and we are in a very limited zone. So imagine the whole world that we have constructed through this Panchaskanda. The more you think about it, it seems such a so untrue, right? So the more you start realizing this, and the less value then you're going to put into the inputs that's coming from outside. Because if you really think about it, all the emotional drama that goes on in our minds and how we react to our words and behaviors. So all because of either what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you smell, what you feel, and what you think about, right? So avijja paccaya sankhara. Sankhara paccaya vijnana. Now this is interesting. So how does this, because of your ignorance, you have reactions to the stimulus in a way that creates karmic formations that have the potential to take you to the next birth. So how does this work? So the normal human being, the human being that is not enlightened, this whole Panchaskanda, think of it as a process, and it's a process. It's quite fast. There's a lot of mental activity taking place. Whereas enlightened being, this process has stopped, right? So there's this process. It's a stillness, right? So an example or a metaphor I can give is, imagine a vehicle is being driven at 100 kilometers per hour, and it hits a tree, let's say at 100 kilometers per hour, right? As it hits the tree, what happens? The people and the content inside the vehicle, because they were all at 100 kilometers per hour, they will all go, they'll just literally, that velocity, that speed will just carry them out. If they can get thrown out, they'll get thrown out as a result, because they're still at that speed, right? So this whole mental process of, these are things I like, these are things I don't like, I want this, I don't want that, and all of that is happening at such a unconscious level and a speed. Suddenly the body that is the vessel for this mental process, suddenly the body drops dead, right? Because we all know that when we die, there's no warning, isn't it? It's like you just hit a tree, right? Suddenly the body drops dead. But what happens to that mental energy? Just going to throw yourself straight into your next birth, isn't it? I mean, that's the kind of rough way of thinking about this, right? And now you need to go to your next birth, and assuming that's in another mother's womb, right? How do you now choose where to go? Here is where you'll have to remember the whole karma lesson that we did. Had there been some very serious things that happened in the past, that is where the whole your rebirth gets decided by those. Now, not that there's somebody deciding on this, right? This is all a very natural process. It is very likely that your mental, that whatever that energy gets attracted to places which has similar qualities, right? So a person, imagine a person spent his or her most of their life very angry, always thinking of how to hurt somebody and so on. Where are those qualities most predominantly there? So let's say there is a plane where all those qualities are at its highest, like the Niraya, for example, the upper air. So it is possible that the similar qualities find each other, right? Again, these are this is how I suppose you can make sense of it, right? So what I'll do is let me pause here, right? Because just to see how you are doing, and we'll take the rest of it from there. But first, I would like to ask Hamduro actually whether Hamduro has anything to. Number one is Hamduro, if there's anything that you need to correct, please do, because on these topics you are definitely the master, having learned this in a much more formal and detailed way than us. And if you have any comments to share, Hamdane, that will be much appreciated.
No, I think I am also still a student. So I think Nadisha is doing well. I think it should be start as a simple thing, because I think we are focusing to the exam, no?
Yes.
So So we have to have some basic knowledge, and there are some many explanation, but those are for the that vipassana meditation. So I think we don't have to talk about that part because we are going to exam.
Yes.
So I think this way is good, simple and basic things. And if other participant have any question or anything to know, I think we should collect those questions and we
Right.
should discuss another time.
Right. Harmony. Thank you for that, Rohini. So, Rohini, Miss Samantha teacher, Sinaja teacher, Sihan, sir, do you have any questions or comments?
What's up, Fatisha? You can go ahead.
Okay. Rohini teacher?
Yeah, I'm okay, teacher.
All right. Sinaja teacher?
I'm okay, miss.
Okay. Samantha teacher?
Me too.
All right. Okay. So, I will just, we have just a few minutes. I will just run through the rest of it. And we can go through it again when we meet next time. Not the whole Panchaskanda thing, but the 12-factor formula, right? So because of ignorance, there is the karma formations, and with this karma formation, think of it like that velocity, right? You go into the mother's womb. And what goes into the mother's womb is this vijnana, or your consciousness, right? Now, as the consciousness goes into the mother's womb, vijnana pacha nama rupa. So that is the whole nama and the rupa, the mind and the matter, starts taking shape in it. As the nama rupa starts taking shape, nama rupa pacha salayatana. So salayatana is 6 bases, right? The eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the skin, and the whole, the 6 bases start taking place. Salayatana, right? Once the sense bases take place, then comes the sense impressions, the sparsha, the passa. Passa pacha vedana. So as sense impressions take place, that conditions the rising of feelings, right? Vedana pacha tanha. The Vedana, like I explained before, Sukha Vedana, Dukkha Vedana, Dukkhama Sukha, right? The pleasant sensations, unpleasant sensations, and the neutral sensations. There comes a craving, because naturally we crave for more of the pleasant sensations, and we crave for less or zero of the unpleasant sensations, right? Tanha pacha upadana. With the craving comes or is conditioned clinging. Small examples are, as we start liking something, we want it to be with us forever. Okay? Upadana bhava. So with clinging, what gets conditioned is the process of becoming. So the whole bhava, it's the whole process of becoming. Bhava pacha jati. The process of becoming is conditioned, the whole birth, and with jati comes Pacha, Jara, Maranam, so Parideva Dukkha, Domanasa, Upayasa, Sambhavanti. Birth is conditioned, decay, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and desire. And that's the whole march of suffering starts. So that is the 12-factor formula of the dependent origination, and this is the most popular version. And here we have detailed explanation of one. So avijja pacha sankara, through ignorance, our conditions karma formation, right? Sankara Pachya Vijnana, and so on. There is more detail in this. This was coming from the whole YMBA book 4 syllabus, right? So as Buddhist and certainly as Dhamma school staff, it would be useful to spend another day or two on this because there's to get a good understanding. So what I'll do is I'll share this document now in the group, and do please read it, and we can understand it better and discuss it more. So I'm happy to stop here. I'll just stop the recording.